The Art of War, by Sun Tzu. Introduction. Imagine this. You're standing on a terrace overlooking a grand courtyard. It's ancient China, more than 2,500 years ago. The air is still. Beside you is King Ho Lu of Wu, a powerful and ambitious ruler. He turns to a quiet, unassuming man next to him. This man is Sun Tzu. The king has read Sun Tzu's short but profound book on strategy, all 13 chapters of it, and he's intrigued. But he's also skeptical. He asks, "Your principles are brilliant. But can they actually be applied? Can you prove it to me? And, could you apply them even to women?" Sun Tzu simply replies, "I can." So the king, perhaps with a mischievous glint in his eye, orders 180 of his favorite concubines to be brought out into the courtyard. He wants a real test. Sun Tzu divides the women into 2 companies and places the king's 2 most beloved concubines as their leaders. He gives them each a spear and begins to explain the drill commands. "Do you know the difference between your front and your back, your left hand and your right?" he asks. The women giggle and say, "Yes." "Good," Sun Tzu continues. "When I give the command eyes front, you look straight ahead. When I say left turn, you face your left hand. When I say right turn, you face your right." He explains it all. He sets up the battle axes to mark the drill ground. Then, to the sound of a drum, he gives the first order, right turn. The courtyard erupts in laughter. The women can't take it seriously. They're just playing a game. Sun Tzu's face remains calm. He addresses the group. "If the commands are not clear," he says, "if the orders are not understood, then the general is to blame." So he explains the commands again, slowly and carefully. This time, he gives the order, left turn. Once again, the women just burst into fits of laughter. The king, watching from his terrace, is probably smiling. This is all just a bit of fun. But Sun Tzu's expression has hardened. He speaks again, and this time his voice cuts through the air. "If the commands are not clear, the general is to blame. But if his orders are clear, and the soldiers still disobey, then it is the fault of their officers." And with that, he orders the 2 leaders, the king's favorite concubines, to be beheaded. The king is horrified. He sends a messenger rushing down. "Stop! I am satisfied with your ability to handle troops. Without these 2 women, my food and drink will lose their flavor. Do not execute them." Sun Tzu receives the message and sends his reply back to the stunned king. "Having received my commission as general, there are certain commands from your majesty that I am unable to accept." And he carries out the execution. He appoints the next 2 women in line as the new leaders. The drum sounds once more. And this time, when Sun Tzu gives his commands, the women move with perfect, silent precision. They turn right, left, kneel, and rise without a single mistake, without uttering a sound. The game was over. They understood. This is the story that introduces the world to Sun Tzu, and it's the key to understanding his masterpiece, The Art of War. This isn't just a book about fighting. It's a book about the psychology of victory, the power of discipline, and the profound art of winning before the battle even begins. For over 2 millennia, its lessons have been studied not just by generals, but by CEOs, coaches, lawyers, and anyone who has ever faced a competitor or a challenge. Today, we're going to unlock the timeless wisdom of this incredible little book. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you'll see that its lessons are not about conquering others, but about mastering yourself. You will learn the secrets to turning your weaknesses into strengths, to navigating any conflict with grace and intelligence, and to achieving your goals with the least amount of struggle. This is the art of strategic thinking, And it all begins with understanding one simple, powerful idea. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Book summary. So where do we begin to understand a mind like Sun Tzu's? The first thing to realize is that for him, conflict was not something to be rushed into. It was a last resort, a failure of strategy. He said that war is a matter of life and death, a road to either safety or ruin, and it must be studied with the utmost seriousness. This sounds obvious, but think about how often we jump into arguments, competitions, or challenges without really thinking. We rely on brute force, on just trying harder. Sun Tzu would say this is the path of the amateur. The master strategist, the true artist of war, wins differently. It all starts with what he called laying plans. Before you ever make a move, you have to know the landscape. And he wasn't just talking about hills and rivers. He identified 5 constant factors that determine the outcome of any conflict. These are the keys to victory, whether you're launching a business, leading a team, or even just navigating a difficult conversation. First is the moral law. This is your why. It's the purpose that unites you and your team, making people willing to follow you, to work hard, to face any danger because they believe in the mission. If your people are not in complete accord with the goal, you've already lost. A team with a powerful, shared purpose is almost unbreakable. Second is heaven. This doesn't mean fate. It means the conditions you can't control, the timing, the weather, the season. In business, this could be the state of the economy, a new trend, or a sudden change in the market. A wise leader doesn't fight against these conditions. They understand them and use them to their advantage. You don't sail against a storm. You wait for the right wind. Third is earth. This is the ground beneath your feet, the actual environment. It's the terrain, the distances, the dangers, and the opportunities. In your life, this is the competitive landscape. Who are the other players? What are the rules of the game? Where are the narrow passes you can defend? And where is the open ground where you might be vulnerable? Knowing the terrain means you choose where the battle is fought, not your opponent. Fourth is the commander. This is you. It's your character. Sun Tzu said a commander must have wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. You have to be smart, but also trustworthy. You have to care for your people, but also have the courage to make hard decisions. And, as he showed the king, you must be strict enough that your orders are followed. This isn't about being a tyrant. It's about creating a culture of discipline where everyone knows what's expected of them. And fifth is method and discipline. This is your organization. It's having clear roles, a chain of command, and control over your resources. It's your system. A brilliant idea without a system to execute it is just a dream. A talented team without organization will descend into chaos. Before any engagement, Sun Tzu would weigh these 5 factors for both sides. Which leader has the stronger moral law? Who has the better commander? Who understands the conditions of heaven and earth? Which side is more disciplined? By asking these questions, he said, he could forecast victory or defeat before a single spear was thrown. And this leads to one of the most famous lines ever written on strategy. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. This is the foundation. It's the deep reflective work you do before the action starts. But once you have this knowledge, how do you use it? This is where Sun Tzu's genius truly shines. His answer is simple and profound. All warfare is based on deception. This isn't about lying or being dishonorable. It's about outthinking your opponent. It's about controlling the narrative of the conflict. He wrote, "When able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. Think of it like a magician. The magician directs your attention to one hand, while the real trick is happening with the other. Sun Tzu taught that you should always be shaping your opponent's perception of reality. Feign disorder to lure them into a trap. Pretend to be weak so they become arrogant and careless. Irritate an opponent with a hot temper to make them act rashly. One of his descendants, another brilliant general named Sun Tzu, used this idea perfectly. He was at war with the state of Wei, whose general, Pang Chuan, believed the soldiers of Qi were cowards. Sun Tzu decided to use this prejudice against him. After crossing into Wei territory, on the first night, he ordered his army to light 100,000 cooking fires. On the second night, only 50,000. And on the third, just 20,000. Pang Chuan, in hot pursuit, saw this and thought, "I knew it, the Qi soldiers are deserting. Their numbers have dropped by more than half already." He grew overconfident and raced ahead with only his best troops, leaving the rest of his army behind. But Sun Tzu had led him right into a narrow pass. He had a tree stripped of its bark and wrote on it, "Under this tree shall Pang Chuan die." He then hit his best archers with orders to shoot the moment they saw a light. When Pang Chuan arrived at the spot after dark, he saw the writing on the tree and lit a torch to read it. The moment he did, 1,000 arrows flew from the darkness, and his army was thrown into chaos. Sun Tzu didn't defeat his enemy with superior numbers. He defeated him by controlling what he thought, by turning his arrogance into a fatal weakness. This is the essence of what Sun Tzu called attacking by stratagem. The highest form of generalship, he said, is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent their forces from uniting. The next is to attack their army in the field. And the absolute worst policy of all is to besiege a walled city. Why? Because besieging a city is a contest of brute force. It exhausts your troops, wastes your resources, and even if you win, the cost is enormous. Sun Tzu is always teaching us to find the smarter way, the more efficient path to victory. And this brings us to his most powerful mantra, the core of his entire philosophy. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. This is the goal. Not to crush, but to win so intelligently that the fight itself becomes unnecessary. You outmaneuver your opponent so completely that they have no choice but to yield. This is victory through wisdom, not violence. To do this, you need to understand the flow of conflict, what Sun Tzu calls Chang, the direct, and Qi, the indirect. The Chang is the obvious, expected attack. It's the frontal assault. The Qi is the surprise, the unexpected maneuver from the flank or the rear. In battle, he explained, you may use the direct method to engage the enemy, but you will need indirect methods to win. The two are like a circle, they endlessly flow into one another. A feint that is meant to be indirect, if discovered, becomes direct. A direct attack can be a setup for a surprise indirect blow. The master strategist is always blending the two, keeping the opponent guessing, confused, and unable to predict the real intent. And when you do strike, it must be with focused power. Sun Tzu uses beautiful, natural imagery to describe this. He says the quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon. It waits, observes, and then strikes with absolute precision and commitment. Energy, he says, is like a bent crossbow. The power is stored, waiting. Decision is the release of the trigger. The momentum of a victorious army, what he calls combined energy, is like the momentum of a round stone rolled down a mountain thousands of feet in height. It becomes an unstoppable force. This isn't just about the physical power of an army. It's about psychological momentum. It's about creating a feeling of inevitability, for your own side and for your opponent. This is why Sun Tzu always emphasizes attacking weakness, not strength. Military tactics, he wrote, are like unto water. For water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downwards. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. Think about that in your own life. How often do we try to solve a problem by attacking its strongest point? We try to convince the most stubborn person, or tackle the hardest part of a project first. Sun Tzu would say you're wasting your energy. Find the weak point. Find the path of least resistance. Like water, be flexible, adapt to the terrain, and your victory will be effortless. This adaptability is crucial. The general who wins is not the one with a rigid, perfect plan. It's the one who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent. He says you should never repeat the tactics that have won you a victory. Why? Because your opponent will expect it. The world is always changing, and so your methods must change with it. Of course, none of this strategy matters without a strong, disciplined force to execute it. This brings us back to the human side of leadership. Sun Tzu understood that an army is not a machine. It's a collection of people with fears, hopes, and motivations. He famously said, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death." This is the benevolence of a true leader. You must care for the well-being of your people. But, and this is the crucial balance, you cannot be soft. He continues, if, however, you are indulgent, but unable to make your authority felt, kind-hearted, but unable to enforce your commands, then your soldiers must be likened to spoiled children. They are useless for any practical purpose. This is the paradox of great leadership, deep care combined with iron discipline. Your team needs to know you have their back, but they also need to know that standards are high and will be enforced. Sun Tzu also warned against the 5 dangerous faults of a general. These are not just for military commanders, they are traps for any leader. First, recklessness, which leads to destruction. This is the leader who takes foolish risks without thinking. Second, cowardice, which leads to capture. This is the leader who is too afraid to seize an opportunity. Third, a hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults. An emotional leader is an easily manipulated leader. Fourth, a delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame. This is the leader who is more concerned with their reputation than with the outcome. And fifth, over-solicitude for his men, which exposes him to worry and trouble. This sounds strange, but what he means is a leader who is so afraid of his people suffering any hardship that he sacrifices the larger strategic goal for their short-term comfort, ultimately leading to greater suffering when the mission fails. A leader who avoids these 5 faults, who treats their people with both compassion and discipline, and who has mastered the art of strategy, seems almost unbeatable. But there is one final piece, the one he calls the sovereign's most precious faculty, foreknowledge. And how do we get this foreknowledge? Not from spirits, not from calculations, but from other people. This is why Sun Tzu dedicates his final chapter to the use of spies. Now, for us, spies might not mean secret agents. It means information. It means intelligence. It's understanding what your competition is planning. It's knowing the morale of your own team. It's getting real, unfiltered feedback from your customers. Information is the lifeblood of strategy. To act without it is to be blind and deaf. Sun Tzu talks about 5 kinds of spies, and we can think of them as 5 channels of information. There are local spies, people from the area, your customers, the locals who know the terrain better than anyone. There are inward spies, officials on the enemy's side you can win over. In a modern context, this could be understanding the internal politics of a rival company or getting insights from someone who used to work there. There are converted spies, the enemy's own spies whom you have turned to your side. This is the most valuable source, because they know the enemy's system from the inside. There are doomed spies, your own spies to whom you give false information. When they are inevitably captured, they will mislead the enemy. This is the art of strategic disinformation. And finally, there are surviving spies, the classic intelligence gatherer, the one who goes in, gets the information, and comes back. The master strategist weaves these 5 sources together into a web of intelligence so complete that their victory seems like magic to the outside world. They always seem to know the enemy's next move. They always seem to be in the right place at the right time. But it's not magic. It's the result of a deep and relentless commitment to gathering information. So, when we put it all together, what does the art of war teach us? It teaches us that victory is not an event, but a process. It begins with deep self-knowledge and a thorough understanding of your opponent and your environment. It is achieved not through brute force, but through deception, adaptability, and the intelligent application of direct and indirect force. It is led by a commander who is both compassionate and disciplined, who avoids the 5 deadly faults. And it is powered by a constant flow of information that provides the foreknowledge to act with confidence and precision. It's a philosophy of efficiency, of achieving the greatest results with the least amount of conflict and waste. It's a way of thinking that allows you to see the world as a grand, interconnected system, and to navigate its challenges with the calm, quiet confidence of a master. It is, in the end, the art of winning. Commentary. It's remarkable, isn't it, that a book written on bamboo strips some 2,500 years ago can feel so incredibly modern. When you strip away the references to chariots and spears, what you're left with is a blueprint for strategic thinking that is as relevant today as it was in the warring states of ancient China. What I find most powerful about The Art of War is that it's fundamentally a book about peace. That might sound like a contradiction, but Sun Tzu's entire philosophy is geared towards avoiding destructive, head-on conflict. He saw war as a colossal failure, a terrible waste of life, treasure, and time. His goal was always to achieve the objective so skillfully that the battle itself would become unnecessary. He teaches that the most powerful person in any room isn't the loudest or the most aggressive, it's the one who is calm, prepared, and who sees the whole board. In our world, which often celebrates relentless hustle, confrontation, and crushing the competition, Sun Tzu's wisdom is a breath of fresh air. He reminds us that true strength lies not in force, but in intelligence. Not in aggression, but in adaptability. Not in seeking glory, but in achieving a quiet, decisive victory that preserves resources and relationships. So how can you, a young, ambitious person on the cusp of your life's great journey, apply this ancient wisdom right now? Let me offer just a few simple ways to start. First, before your next big test, your next game, your next important interview, take a moment to do what Sun Tzu would do: lay plans. Ask yourself about the 5 factors. What is my moral law? What is my ultimate goal here? My true why? What is the heaven? Is the timing right? What are the external conditions? What is the earth? What is the environment? Who are the other players? What are the rules? How am I as the commander? Am I prepared? Am I calm? Am I confident but not arrogant? And what is my method? Do I have a clear plan? A system to follow? Just spending 10 minutes thinking through these questions will put you miles ahead of anyone who just wings it. Second, practice the art of seeing the indirect path. The next time you face a problem, your first instinct will probably be to attack it head-on. Pause. Ask yourself, what is the weak point here? What is the unexpected approach? How can I be like water and flow around this obstacle instead of trying to smash through it? This shift in mindset from brute force to strategic thinking is the first step toward becoming a master of your own life. And finally, embrace the idea that information is power. Be endlessly curious. Know yourself. Know your enemy. Study your field. Understand your competitors, not with animosity, but with a detached, analytical eye. Listen deeply to the people you hope to serve, your customers, your audience, your team. The more you know, the less you have to guess. And the less you guess, the more often you will win. That was A Journey into the Art of War by Sun Tzu. We've explored the highlights today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you walk the territory yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This podcast is designed to be your guide, to help you decide if this book is worth your precious time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a fire in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see the world and your place in it. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, and you feel a little bit wiser and more prepared for the challenges ahead, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.